Are you familiar with Tesla's Cybertruck? It's one of today's most advanced electric automobiles. Imagine driving one back to ancient Greece, along with enough solar panels to keep the vehicle charged. You could ferry people and goods around Athens at 70 miles an hour for hours each day, year after year, and become the talk of the ancient world. Now, imagine one of your passengers, Aristotle, for example, asking you how the Cybertruck works. I don't think you could explain it, even to Aristotle. He'd lack too many of the concepts involved, such as what is electricity, how to make it from sunlight, and how electric motors and generators worked. It would be an illustration of what Arthur C. Clarke is said to have said: any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. That is exactly how I felt beginning these videos. I was a passenger in a vehicle that to me seemed indistinguishable from magic. I wanted to tell you how it worked, but I didn't know how. Like Aristotle, I didn't seem to have the concepts I'd need. But that's what I wanted these videos to be about. That vehicle is, of course, myself. What's so mysterious? I'm an extremely complex chemical organization that, no matter what I do, keeps itself way out of chemical equilibrium with the environment. That'll be apparent when I die. In just a few days, all that chemical organization will turn upon itself, digest itself, and return to equilibrium, becoming just more rust and dust. Meanwhile, every second that I'm alive, something is preventing that self-digestion from happening. That's just one example of how mysterious I found myself. As per my previous videos in this series, I've come to attribute all these wonders to my genome. How wonderful is my genome? One more example. During the 9 months I gestated, starting from a single cell, I developed a complex mechanical apparatus consisting of around 200 bones and 600 muscles. In the womb, I had no need of these. I had no opportunity to exercise them. I floated, supported like a fish in water. But once I was born, muscles turned out to have attached themselves precisely along bones where they were needed to exert just the right leverage. Baby antelopes can walk and run within minutes of being born. Their muscular system was obviously created perfect while in the womb. So where must that information be, precisely defining just how far along each bone, each muscle must attach to exert the right leverage? It must be written somehow in sequences of DNA bases along my genome. Where else could it be? What other source would I have access to in the womb? And that's just one more mystery about how my body works. How much more mysterious must be my mind? After just 9 months, I was born with all the neurons I'd ever have. Somehow my genome knew how to create and wire all those neurons. So as an adult, I'd be able to wonder about the origins of consciousness and record these videos. How can I understand that? Why do I want to? Because of how that could contribute to our share of the advance of consciousness. Human consciousness is maybe 50,000 to 100,000 years old. Us developing language must have been important, but I believe what led to consciousness like ours was the invention of alphabetic writing about 3,000 years ago. As Homer shows us in his Iliad, consciousness back then was pretty primitive. That was only about 50 lifetimes ago. So each lifetime since then has on average seen consciousness advance from Homer's warrior savagery to now by 2%. It took about 10 lifetimes for consciousness to advance enough for Plato and Aristotle to compose their philosophies. About 20 more lifetimes were dominated in the West by Christianity. Modern science has dominated another 6 lifetimes up to today. How are we doing? We should expect in our lifetime to contribute another 2% advance in consciousness. I asked myself, where will that 2% come from? My guess is it will come from what we learn about the genome. It's obviously a source of immense wisdom. I can't, in the whole universe, see any other such source. How can we gain access to that wisdom? I imagined how that could happen over the coming centuries in a story in this channel, Children of the Genome. Briefly, in the course of time travel, it tells how we come to study genomes, learn how to measure their creativity, then from the most creative, identify their ingenious mental talents. Those talents we then incorporate into our own thinking, greatly advancing consciousness. Link in the description. But how about a little closer to home in the lives of our children and grandchildren? Within just a few decades, world population will start shrinking. Those generations will be smaller and anticipating becoming smaller still. Cities needing high occupancy to make them work will become derelict and empty out, as ancient Rome did. From lack of sufficient expertise and shrinking supply chains, high technology factories will go out of business, ending manufacture of computer chips and robots, maybe TV screens. All the consumer goods you could ever want would light a hand in the nearest garbage dump. The lifetime consisting of exchanging labor for consumer goods will no longer make sense, will be abandoned. A crushing need will arise for new appetites to satisfy, new values to base a new economy on. Here, later in this century, study of the genome could become crucial. It's from our animal nature we get our values. Basics are food and drink, shelter and comfort. But after these, beauty in women, team building among men, artistic talent, massage, conjuring, dance, song. Robots wouldn't appreciate these. They satisfy human values. What other values might lie in reserve in our genome? Photographic memory? We seem to have lost that. Can we recover it? Instincts, besides collaboration and competition, that we could base new games on? The animal calls we used to communicate with before we created language, can we recover them? Can we identify values implicit in the behaviors of other animals that we might have silent genes for, ready to be awakened, such as other kinds of play? Raising children together in community seems likely to engage a host of values we're in the process of abandoning. Perhaps instead of apartment buildings in cities or sterile rows of suburban houses, we'll revert to communal village life. That's how I imagine study of the genome helping coming generations equip themselves with new and necessary values. Now, how about us? How can a focus on the genome enrich your consciousness and mine today? Can we learn to read genomes' minds? Perhaps in some respects we already do. Birds of paradise display remarkable song, dance, and plumage to impress females of their own species. But such displays mean nothing to females of other species. Similarly, plants grow flowers that appeal to certain pollinating insects, but not to others. But we can appreciate a very broad range of mating bird and floral display, in fact, of natural beauty broadly. Are we tapping into an aesthetic sense of genomes in general, appreciating genomes' own delight in their own handiwork? Does us having this appreciation mean genomes have already given us access to some of their sensibilities? Are there other ways we might tap into genome sensibility? Our love of music shows we have a very highly developed appreciation of various kinds of sounds. What in genome thinking might this correspond to, through which we might learn more about how they think? How about juvenile prodigies? Take John von Neumann. At age 6, he performed mental calculations with 8-digit numbers. By age 9, he'd mastered calculus. Shankutala Devi, at age 6, could find cube roots in large numbers faster than mechanical calculators. Might such young prodigies be tapping directly into genome intelligence? Can we learn how from them? We are born able to quickly learn a language. All languages are said to show a common pattern. Can this suggest a pattern in genome intelligence that they built into us? Are we understanding ourselves as evolved creatures enough? We know as youths we grow into puberty, assuming emotions and behaviors, encouraging us to reproduce. Women identify the stage of menopause that they experience entering in midlife. Might there be other stages in our lives we might find recorded in our genome? Might there be identifiable stages recorded in our genome of how we become conscious as we mature, for example? In a previous video, I suggested dreaming consisted of messages genomes sent to one another using animal minds as a channel. Our brains will automatically make what sense they can of these communications, but in terms of human knowing, can we step behind the curtain and deduce from our dreams what genomes are saying to one another? Those are some ways we might probe into our genome to discover new wisdom. But how about ways of thinking that are currently getting in our way? One I suggest is anti-racism. Intelligence, as represented by IQ, is largely genetic. It is found to strongly correlate with success in today's technology-driven society. But our wish that everyone be treated equally inhibits us from acknowledging how much we differ genetically, for example in IQ. Problem is, this may be stopping us from recognizing and appreciate other talents with a genetic origin that might become the basis of new forms of success that we might build a new economy around. We've made a start. It's okay to acknowledge that genes from some of their hominid ancestors make some Himalayan inhabitants more tolerant of low levels of oxygen. Identifying more riches in our genome like this will involve being open to recognizing and celebrating ways we differ genetically. This involves a new attitude towards racism, recognizing and welcoming genetic differences among various communities. Now, a way we think today that remains a crushing threat to human self-esteem, that we may reverse simply by changing how we think about how we evolved. I'm talking about Darwinism, or the modern synthesis. That supposedly scientific theory of evolution tells us we're the result of our ancestors having suffered continuous random damage to their genomes, mutations. This degradation of our genomes is arrested only by removal in each generation of the worst of the damage, leaving the rest to accumulate generation by generation. What a miserable account of our origin. No wonder we suffer from low self-esteem. I much prefer to think of myself as the product of a supremely creative intelligence that embedded in me some portion of its own awesome wisdom. Notice, the modern synthesis is a purely physical mechanism, genetic mutation and natural selection. How could that account for any aspect of our mental life? Not surprisingly, belief in that purely physical mechanism is enforced by the physicalists who've set themselves up as experts in our academic science departments. I'm fiercely opposed to the physicalist account of our origins, and I urge on the kind of resistance to it that I'm practicing here, trying to fashion an updated dualism. I insist, evolution is creative. Mind can master matter, and we are wonderful. Conclusion. I set out in this series of 6 videos to identify important concepts we may be missing that we need to better understand ourselves and our place in the universe. Finding these to involve minds, our consciousness, and its evolution, concepts alien to today's physical sciences, I adopted instead what I claimed were tools of natural philosophy, deduction, and speculation. This led me to identify the genome as the venue of the missing concepts, and to proposing that genomes were intelligent, creative, even conscious, mind-like agents. I pictured them as able to think new species of living creatures into existence, a new mechanism of evolution, and making us conscious and creative by embedding into us some of their own mind-like talents. Though genomes can't serve us as a god, they could account for what, in past times, we invented gods to explain. With these suppositions under my belt, I went on to suggest how we might access the vast wisdom of genomes to help us navigate life's challenges, explore alternatives to consumerism, and contribute our share to the advance of consciousness. I hope you appreciate it was never my ambition to arrive at the truth, merely to identify questions we need answers to feel more at home in the universe, and to promote dualism in the face of physicalism's crushing dominance. But also I took this as an opportunity to play with ideas. I enjoy play like that. I like to think I provided you in these videos with an opportunity to enjoy it too. If I did, please tell me so in the comments.